Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 1998 Represent. On this episode, we are talking about the nWo Wolfpack, the nWo Black and Red from 1998. This is the first video in this series on professional wrestling from 1998, and this will definitely not be the last video on 1998 pro wrestling. Pro wrestling in 1998 was just really on point. You had great stuff from WCW and great stuff from WWE. I'm not really super familiar with what was going on in ECW at the time, but basically the brand wars were still in full effect. I think, according to, I think Eric Bischoff was saying, kind of 1998 is where it started to kind of slip back to WWE kind of controlling the ratings and what have you, because WWE started really hard in with the Attitude Era kind of around that time, even though that was probably closer to 1997. But in 1998, the Attitude Era was in full swing. In 1998 in WCW, you had the NWO Wolfpack, which we'll be talking about in this video. You had Bill Goldberg's undefeated streak going on. You had like the return of the Ultimate Warrior. He was there in toward the end of the end of the year, end of 1998 for that. And you had some just other kind of crazy stuff in there. You had, I remember DDP and Karl Malone teaming up to take on Hogan and Rodman. You had DDP teaming up with Jay Leno to wrestle. I think it was Hogan and Eric Bischoff. I think that was at don't know if they were calling it Hog Wild at the time or it was Road Wild. And there was Hog Wild and then there was also Road Wild, which were basically the same pay-per-view. But in this video, we are talking about the nWo Wolfpack, which is essentially a face version of the nWo. So the nWo up to that point were basically a heel faction, the nWo Black and White, which had formed in 1996, and the Hogan heel turn is still one of the best heel turns of all time, where he comes out and just drops the leg drop on Macho Man, and aligns himself with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. And I kind of got back into wrestling toward the end of 1996 because of I remember just turning it on, and it was when Roddy Piper had defeated Hogan at, I think it was Starrcade, in 96. So I got really back into wrestling in 1990, the very end of 96 into 97. And a lot of these storylines kind of, not really storylines, but the factions were there from that period and still in effect until 1998. I have some notes here on the Wolfpack, and we're going to just take a quick look at these notes here. So, Savage and Nash kind of aligned themselves. I think it was Spring Stampede of 1998, so it would have been kind of formed around April 19th, 1998, because they had the Spring, I think, yeah, Spring Stampede, because Slamboree was one usually after that, like in May. But Spring Stampede, there was a match between, like, where Hogan and Nash were in a tag team match together, and I think this is like the NWO, as we knew it, was kind of like somewhat self-destructing. And then basically you had a bunch of people from the NWO Black and White kind of just splinter off and form their own faction. And the two people that were in that did that initially were Macho Man Randy Savage and Kevin Nash. So at that pay-per-view, Macho Man was wrestling Sting, and Hogan and Nash had like a tag team match earlier on the card. I forget exactly who it was against, but I think Hogan attacked Nash at the end of that. And then kind of basically Nash then interfered in the world title match between Sting and Savage and allowed Savage to get the win. And they were kind of, at that point, splintering off from the Black and White NWO. The following night on Nitro, it was kind of silly because Macho Man had won the title, and then the night after, lost it to Hogan in another match. So it was like a no disqualification match, but then there was like, they weren't allowed to do any run-ins, but then it was like, what's the point of it? Like, it was just kind of weird. But then at that point, the NWO Black and White took the title back because Sting had the title initially, and then Savage won it from him, and then the next night Hogan won it from Sting. Let's just go through a quick members list here. So the initial members, or just the members that I think I remember at least, were Kevin Nash, of course, the Macho Man Randy Savage. You have Conan, Kurt Hennig, and Rick Rude, who were like in it for like a week, and then like they basically turned and rejoined the NWO Black and White. So like I don't know if they ever explained like why they did that. If it was just like if they were basically in the Black and White the entire time, but yeah, Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude technically were members, but they were like only with the faction for like a week or so. So it was kind of quick. Then you have Lex Luger and Sting, with I guess Scott Hall was in it temporarily as well toward the end, and I think Disco Inferno, according to my research, was also in it at one point. The big ones here that were really kind of shocking at the time were definitely Sting and Lex Luger. Lex Luger joined first, and then kind of basically persuaded Sting to join. But the thing about that was like up to that point, from when I was started watching in the late '96 into like early '97 and onward, is Lex Luger was always pretty much against the NWO. So it was really weird seeing him in an NWO faction, even though it was a face version of the NWO. It was just weird. It was even especially weird seeing Sting join it. But at that point, it was like, I'll leave a link in the description to where you can check this video out. When Sting joined the NWO, it was awesome. I remember like he at that point was tag teaming with the Giant. They were both the tag team champions. The Giant had then joined the NWO Black and White. He kind of also wanted Sting to join to kind of come over, and they basically kind of had a thing be like, well, I'm joining the Black and White, the NWO. If you want to come over here, like join me, whatever. They eventually did have a match. I think this was after Sting decided to join the Wolfpack, where it was again the Giant and Sting were the tag team champions, and then they had a match. I think it was at the Great American Bash that year. To whoever won that match between Sting and the Giant would basically take the other tag team title. So basically, like Sting won, and then basically just named Kevin Nash the other tag team champion. So basically, it was whoever wins gets both tag team championship belts, and then can basically just name a new partner. And Sting chose Nash for that. Let me see what we have here. Formations, we got that. Savage was injured after shortly. I want to say like maybe like a month or so after they formed it. I don't know if it was like a legitimate injury that they kind of like. They made it look like the injury happened in a match, but I wonder if it was something where Savage did have a legitimate injury and they were just trying to get him off of TV. Because I think I remember seeing the match, and it was a cage match, and the NWO basically ran into the match and attacked Savage, and I think the thing that basically, like, they said, like, this is the thing that actually injured Savage was, I think it was Eric Bischoff that did it, but it was Savage was in the corner, and they put, like, a chair against Savage's leg, and Eric Bischoff actually, I believe, is an actual martial artist, did a spinning kick into it, and kicked the chair into Savage's knee, and then Savage was written off of TV for like a while. I want to say it was like almost a year, because I don't remember seeing Savage on WCW TV for like until like 1999. And then when he came back, he immediately kind of like, not different character, but he was the NWO Wolfpack wasn't a thing anymore. And then he was kind of, I think, in a storyline with Kevin Nash, because I remember like him trying like doing something to where like a limo crashed into it. It was kind of like WCW at that point was kind of imploding anyway, so I don't really know if I remember the exact storyline. And by that time, I was had switched from watching both WCW and WWE to just mostly watching WWE and maybe occasionally flipping to Nitro to see what was going on. Back in 1998, I was mostly watching WCW and then flipping over periodically to see what was going on Raw. So I kind of switched over at that point to just watch WWE mostly. I remember DDP at one point almost joined the NWO, or joined the Black and Red. I remember there's a video where I think like he was asked to join, and it was getting interviewed by Mean Gene Okerlund, and he was basically grabbing his shirt kind of like this, be like, I don't believe I'm actually about to do this, and it looked like he was going to maybe take his shirt off and put a Wolfpack shirt on. But I think right before he did that, he got attacked by the by members of the Black and White NWO, and then he never ended up joining. It would have been cool to see DDP in the Wolfpack, though. That would have been an interesting kind of thing. Like I said, Sting joining was amazing because we kind of just touched on it earlier. But when Sting joined, it was a kind of like a fake out for a second because Sting comes out, um, removes his jacket, opens the jacket up, and then it's Hogan and the Giant in the ring. And they were, everybody, like, the Wolfpack was courting Sting, the Black and White was courting Sting, and Sting takes his jacket off and has a black and white, irregular NWO shirt on. And Hogan celebrating, and, like, the Giant celebrating, and then Sting attacks Hogan. And then the Giant turns around and sees what happened, and then basically tries to attack Sting. Sting basically pitches the Giant out of the ring, and then rips the NWO black and white shirt off to show an NWO Wolfpack shirt below it. Speaking of the shirts, I don't think they, like, let me see what the date was. Looks like May 4th was the date that they actually had new clothing. And I don't know if they got the new music then, because the NWO Wolfpack had their own design, which is, of course, the red and black. And then they had their own theme music as well. So I know May 4th is when they started debuting the kind of like the red and black design. I don't know if that was the same date that they had the new music as well. But I remember just like back in this would have been toward the end of my junior year of high school. This was pretty much all my friends and I were talking about when we would basically go back to school on a either a Tuesday or a Friday, because I think Thunder was a thing at this point. Thunder was like kind of like not great, but I remember like on Tuesdays we would talk about Nitro, on Fridays we would talk about what happened on Thursday night on Thunder. But yeah, the whole NWO Wolfpack thing was just kind of like the talk around just like what everybody was talking about in my little like friend group that was like really into wrestling. One of my friends, I remember actually like buying like multiple Wolfpack shirts. I ended up getting a Wolfpack shirt, or what I thought was a Wolfpack shirt. It was in a mall, so I think it was a knockoff shirt, but it was the NWO design, but it was like the shade of red was slightly, it was more pinkish than red, so it definitely looked like it was like a knockoff shirt. I still have it somewhere, because I remember when I bought it, it actually came with, I don't know if this plastic is still available, but it's definitely a thing from the 90s. It's a like white, like a kind of like a whitish plastic water bottle cup thing. So it was like a cup. It had a lid that had a straw in it, and it was like a kind of straw if you blew into it would make whistling sounds. I just remember seeing those kind of cups in water bottles all the time in the 90s. I haven't really seen them lately. I mean, they're probably like, that was probably before water bottle companies stopped putting BPA and all kinds of chemicals in their plastic. So maybe those things aren't being made anymore. But I remember I bought the shirt in a mall, and like it was like I said, it's most definitely a knockoff shirt, because like if I ever find it, I'll have to take a look at it. But it definitely has a more pinkish kind of tone to the red. But it was cool because it was basically an NWO shirt that came with a water bottle. I think one of my friends in high school commented that the shirt was more pinkish, and I was like, well, if Bret Hart ever joins the Wolfpack, it'll fit. And then, because I think they were kind of teasing that Bret Hart was kind of aligning with them, but he was also feuding with them at the same time. So, and then I remember there was like a backstage brawl between Bret Hart and Sting at one point. And I want to say that was like in the fall of that year. But they kind of, I definitely remember there were being like slight hints that Bret Hart may have been trying to get into the Wolfpack, but it may have been like also like get into the Wolfpack to sabotage it, because he ended up, I think, aligning with the Black and White at some point. And I think he was like also in like a rebranded NWO at one point. And I remember there was like, I don't remember what year it was, but I remember he was like Arn Anderson and him were backstage, and they like were like attacking Arn Anderson and like pouring coffee on him. I don't remember exactly what the context of that was, or like what faction it was, because I know at one point they 1999 WCW was really weird, and then it got kind of started going downhill like really quickly in 1999 until it got eventually sold in 2001. But they redid the NWO, they relaunched it, and I want to say it was definitely like Scott Steiner and Jeff Jarrett were in it. I don't remember who else was in it, and that may have been the Bret Hart thing. It may have been something completely different. I don't recall exactly. But then, like basically, like from basically April until the very beginning of 1999 was just it was awesome. I remember like in high school, my friends and I would always do the Wolfpack Too Sweet. Like I remember like I was probably at some point probably annoyed them just by like whenever I would see him, I'd be like too sweet, and we all would do the like you and your friends basically touch them together like that. Um, the Bullet Club eventually used it or did it. Like a lot of wrestling fans will still throw this up because it's not necessarily just a Wolfpack thing. The NWO did it. The regular NWO did it as well, but it's just like it's just an iconic like wrestling gesture. You just basically it's like too sweet or whatever the thing is. But I remember, speaking of too sweet, there was like one time I was at I think it was like a Raw, and this person had had these numbers like it was a two, like a big um, cardboard two that was wrapped up in like aluminum foil. So they would hold it up whenever there was a two count, and this person was sitting right across from us. So like we're here, the ring is here, and this other person is like over like in the stands here. So we're basically like not looking directly at them. They probably wouldn't be able to see us, but we would always see the two go up, and whenever the two count would happen, the people in the crowd would be like too sweet. So it was kind of funny. That was like what I say like 6 or 7 years ago. So the whole too sweet thing is definitely still like a thing within like the wrestling community, which I think is really cool. But we get to 1998, the end of the year. Um, Goldberg's undefeated streak gets ended because Scott Hall interferes and like hits him with like a cattle prod. Kevin Nash wins the title, and then like I think it's like the first Nitro of 1999. This would have been like the day before. I want to say we had that Monday off of school for some reason because I think it was January 4th, so like January 5th was like the first day back at school. I don't know the exact dates, but it was definitely like the first Tuesday back after Christmas / New Year's break that year. And it was right after the infamous finger poke of doom, which is definitely like one of the kind of like turning points for I think like WCW's downfall. Like the writing was on the wall probably earlier than that, but like at that point I really couldn't tell. I mean the formation of the Wolfpack could have been basically something where like it doesn't say a whole lot about your faces if your faces are just members of a heel faction that splintered off at some point. So it was kind of like in retrospect it was kind of like a weird thing to do, but I think back then it was awesome. And like it probably if I were to watch it now, like the warning signs of WCW's kind of like demise were probably there, but being like 18 years old at the time, I probably wouldn't have recognized it. I may have like if it happened like currently in the current like climate of like kind of I don't want to say wrestling being more predictable, but like me having watched more of it, I kind of like can tell when something is going to happen or like where a storyline might be going. So or even like internal like backstage stuff that I may not even be privy to. I think I have a better kind of grasp on it now than I probably did then. But anyhow, Finger Poke of Doom happens. That sets up. There was going to be a match between Hogan and Nash. I remember Goldberg was supposed to get a match as well, but they did a thing where Miss Elizabeth basically like was like pressed charges on him, and Goldberg got arrested, so he wasn't able to wrestle. And then basically the match I think it was going to be a Goldberg Nash match to a Nash Hogan match, and basically and I remember seeing this live and I'm like also thinking it was just like surreal because I'm like what the hell is going on, because Hogan just basically taps Nash goes to the ground. I'm like okay, this is like what the hell is this. Hogan gets the cover of the 1 2 3. Match is over, they all celebrate, and then basically the NWO then is like basically reincorporated, and it was just so disappointing. And I just remember like going into school the next day, thinking walking into a gym class, and my friend sees me walk in. This is the friend who I mentioned earlier, where we would always just talk about what was going on with like on Tuesdays and Fridays, and he's just like sitting there like in this gym class, like sitting on the bleachers with the other students because I like walked in after like I walked in on time and everybody like a few other people were already there, and he was just shaking his head, and it was just like, and it was just kind of like this looking like, yep, yeah, that was bad, that was dumb. And then kind of after that, I kind of stopped, not entirely watching WCW, but definitely watching it less. I think it kind of turned me off from being a fan up to that point because it was so good up to that point, and then it was just like in like an instant, it was like pretty much ruined. And that was like I think like shortly before they did the thing where they mentioned Mick Foley winning the championship, and everybody's like, "Oh, Mick Foley's going to win the championship on Raw." And be like, actually watch that, and then like basically like the Monday Night Wars kind of ended there, I think, because at that point, WWE was kind of already regaining, like becoming very dominant, and I think basically had turned the tide at that point in the Monday Night Wars. But I just remember being so disappointed that that's the way kind of like the Wolfpack ended, and then I think they called it like NWO Elite because I know the logo like they changed the logo and it was like half red, half white. So like if it was like NWO, it was like the W was split in the middle, and then like it was the left side was white, the right half was red, or it could be the other way around. I don't remember, but it was just kind of like such a like a disappointing way to end such a cool faction at the time. But that's kind of just the way it goes, I guess. But the NWO Wolfpack, I'll definitely always have fond memories of just like watching those matches, watching these members of the NWO that you would never expect to see in the NWO, especially Sting and Lex Luger joining it are just awesome. Like I said, like, and I'll leave a link in the description to check out the video of Sting joining the Wolfpack where he rips off the jacket and he's got the rips the shirt off and he's got the Wolfpack shirt underneath it. But that's going to do it for this video. We'll definitely do more wrestling videos through the course of this series. We'll probably do some on like just like what else was going on in WCW. We'll do some ones that are WWE focused and so on. Just because wrestling in 1998, I think, was pretty much like a peak for a while, especially with the Attitude Era kind of just definitely getting into high gear. But again, that's going to do it for this video. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll be back again next time. We'll probably be doing a video game of some kind. Not sure which game we'll be doing yet, but we'll be doing that probably pretty soon. Again, that's going to do it for now. Thanks again for watching. Take care and have a good one. And 2 sweet!